The winter was cruel that year. Snow fell silently outside, as if trying to bury the shame others wished she'd carry. Emma Simmons stood at the door of the life she helped build, only to be cast out, like she never belonged. They thought it was over. They thought they had silenced her. But from the coldest night of her life, Emma would rise, not to seek revenge, but to create something no one could ever take from her again. This is the story of how she turned loss into legacy, and reclaimed the power they tried to erase. Emma hurried down the sterile hospital corridor, the container of warm soup clutched in her trembling hands. Outside, snow was falling heavily, her breath forming small clouds in the cold air. As she entered the room, her father Richard lay weakened by terminal cancer, his once strong frame now frail. But his eyes, they still held warmth when they found his daughter. "Sorry I'm late, Dad. David and I got into another argument." Emma's voice trailed off, the weight of home troubles visible in the dark circles under her eyes. Richard weakly squeezed her hand. "His mother still giving you trouble?" Emma looked down, remembering Grace's harsh words, "Stop visiting your father. Family means putting your own child first." The memory stung like an open wound. "Don't worry about it. You're what matters," Emma said, but her father saw through the brave face she wore. "You've always been strong, Emma. But this is too much for you two." "No, don't talk like that," Emma interrupted, fear rising in her chest. "You're going to get better." Richard stared at the ceiling, contemplating. "I've been running too, you know." "From what?" "The past. My talent." He offered a faint smile tinged with regret. "I always meant to tell you, but time seems to be running out." Emma shook her head fiercely. "We still have plenty of time. You will." "Emma," her father said, his voice gentle but firm. "Part of strength is accepting reality." He hesitated. "Do you remember when I turned to alcohol?" Emma nodded slowly, memories surfacing, herself as a small child, tearfully begging, "Daddy, please stop drinking." The smell of whiskey. The sound of bottles clinking in the trash. "You saved me then." Your little face was so determined. His grip tightened slightly on her hand. "I needed you. More than you ever needed me." Emma held back her tears as she nodded silently. She stayed late into the night, returning home only after he had fallen asleep. The doorknob was frozen when Emma arrived home from the hospital. Inside, David and his mother Grace were watching the TV. Neither acknowledged her return. "I'm home," Emma said to the silent room. She sighed, reaching for water in the refrigerator. Grace's cold stare followed her. "Late again, I see. Dad's condition is worse. How much more time and money do you intend to waste on your father?" Grace interrogated. "I'm helping with the mortgage on this house. Yet you show no gratitude and squander our money on some old man." Emma had reached her limit. "Grace, my father is not some old man. And this mortgage has been paid by me and my father." David stood, angry. "Not this again. Mom's helping us. Show some appreciation." "Your real family is here," Grace declared. "This is where your time and money belong." As Emma turned to leave, Grace's tone suddenly shifted. "Things were different in my day. Mother was absolute. Disobedience meant punishment. That's how I learned to value family." For a moment, Emma caught a glimpse of vulnerability in her mother-in-law's face. But Grace immediately said in a cold voice, "I won't show weakness. I'm simply doing what's right." Emma retreated to her bedroom, tears threatening to spill. This had become her nightly routine. A phone call from the hospital interrupted Emma at work. Her father's condition had deteriorated rapidly. She texted David, but received no response. Outside, the snow was intensifying. At the hospital, Emma clutched her father's hand, tears flowing freely. "Dad, please, don't go yet." Richard summoned his remaining strength to look at his daughter. "Emma, be strong. You're not alone." His voice grew fainter. Don't forget the workshop. Everything is there. In an even softer whisper, he added, the blue notebook in the safe, it has everything, and my truth. His hand went limp in hers. Emma sobbed uncontrollably, her body shaking with grief. Dad. Her voice broke with anguish. The funeral was small and modest. Emma stood alone by the grave long after others had left, watching as workers filled in the earth, each shovelful of dirt a finality she wasn't ready to accept. She returned home exhausted, her eyes swollen from crying. Snow was beginning to fall heavily, covering her footprints almost as soon as she made them, erasing her path as if she'd never existed. When she opened the door, her suitcase and several boxes were piled in the hallway. David and Grace stood watching, their expressions cold and unyielding. What is this? Emma asked, confusion evident in her voice. I can't take it anymore, David said coldly. You need to leave. What are you talking about? This is my home. Grace stepped forward. I've paid the mortgage. I have no obligation to support you. David says he can't stand you anymore. Emma could no longer contain her anger. If anything, you owe me money. This house is in both our names, it's my home too. David grabbed her arm, dragging her toward the door. Get out. Now. David shouted, his voice cracking with emotion that seemed to come from somewhere deeper than anger. Something shifted in the atmosphere, a moment of suspended time where only the ticking of the clock could be heard. In that moment, Emma understood that the concept of a home was vanishing from her life forever. He tossed her suitcase outside with unnecessary force, the zipper bursting open on impact. Her clothes scattered across the snow-covered step like fallen birds. The door slammed shut with a finality that reverberated through her bones. Emma stood frozen, disbelief turning her limbs to stone. Snow quickly accumulated on her hair and face, melting into tears she didn't realize she was shedding. Her hands trembled as she reached for her phone, but the battery was nearly dead, the final light in her life flickering out. Emma desperately tried to hail a taxi, but several drove past without stopping. From neighboring windows, curtains moved slightly, faces peered out, then quickly disappeared when Emma looked their way. Someone, help me. Her plea was absorbed by the falling snow. Passers-by averted their eyes from the distressed woman and her scattered luggage, hurrying past in the cold as if misfortune might be contagious. All she had left were her father's photograph, creased at the edges from being held too tightly, his sketchbook filled with designs, and a few dollars. Tears froze on her cheeks almost instantly. She remembered her father's words, the sun always rises after the darkest night. As she struggled to close her broken suitcase, Emma caught her reflection in a puddle of slush, pale, tear-streaked, abandoned. The woman looking back at her seemed like a stranger. But in that unfamiliar face, something flickered, a spark of her father's determination, a glimpse of a strength she'd forgotten she possessed. The betrayal cut deeper than the winter cold. The people who had promised to be her family had discarded her like she was nothing. With nowhere to go and the world turning its back on her, Emma felt truly alone for the first time in her life. The snow fell harder, covering the city in silence. In that quiet, Emma made a wordless promise to her father and to herself. This moment, this cruel, icy rejection, would not be her ending. Somehow, it would be a beginning. With trembling hands but newfound resolve, Emma gathered what remained of her life and stepped away from the house that was no longer her home, each footprint in the snow marking the start of a journey she never wanted but could no longer avoid. With the money left over, Emma took a cab and arrived at her father's house in the suburbs. Beyond the snow-covered yard stood a small home with an attached garage. Melting snow dripped slowly from the roof, forming small puddles on the ground. She struggled with the keys, finally pushing open the door to find the house freezing cold inside. Dust covered every surface, pipes had frozen, and the electricity had been shut off. Yet everywhere, memories of her father lingered, the way he taught her to polish gems, their Sunday cooking rituals, his gentle smile. Emma collapsed onto her father's bed, still wearing her coat, and began to sob uncontrollably. Dad, what am I supposed to do now? Outside the window, early signs of spring appeared as the snow began to melt. The following morning, Emma checked her emails and froze in horror. There was a termination notice from her company. The message cited leaked confidential information and decreased work performance due to mental instability as the reasons. Reading further, she discovered that David's college friend was the HR director at her company. Decision based on strong concerns from Cedric, the email stated. David had used his personal connections to destroy her career. Worse still, they had withdrawn all funds from their joint account. Looking at the bank notification, Emma felt her world crumbling. She was literally penniless. How can this be happening? Emma whispered. Her trembling hands tried to boil water, only to discover the gas had been disconnected too. Looking out at the melting snow landscape, she felt utterly lost. In the garden, tiny shoots were beginning to emerge from beneath the snow. Is this the end of my life? She wondered. Is this all there is? In her desperation, Emma remembered her father's final words, "Don't forget the workshop," and "Look for the blue notebook in the safe." She crossed the yard, briefly catching her exhausted reflection in a puddle. The garage door, buried in snow, had become slightly easier to move as the snow melted. She turned the rusty key and pushed open the door that had been closed for years. In the dim light, dust-covered workbenches and tools lined the walls. With shaking hands, Emma held a flashlight, surveying her father's workspace, jeweler's tools, polishing machines, and a small safe. Early spring light filtered through the window, creating beams through the dust. What am I supposed to do here? She wondered aloud. Then, almost like a whisper, she seemed to hear her father's voice, "Start with one thing at a time." Emma opened the drawers of her father's workbench, examining the tools and materials left behind. She had learned basic techniques from him, but never comprehensive training. Still, when she picked up the tools, she felt an unexpected warmth flow through her hands. Opening the safe, she found rare gemstones and half-finished pieces her father had collected. Beside them lay the blue notebook he had mentioned. The first page contained a handwritten message, "To Emma, this is my legacy. Not in form, but in the joy of creation. Not revenge, but creation is my true will." As she turned the pages, detailed techniques for gem cutting and her father's unique creative methods were revealed. Emma read hungrily. Midway through, she encountered a shocking revelation: the real reason I disappeared from the world, my parting with Marcus Valentine. The notebook revealed her father's hidden past. Richard had once formed a partnership with Marcus, celebrated as the genius duo in the industry. But Marcus had secretly registered their jointly developed technical patents solely under his name. He had also plagiarized Richard's designs, submitting them to international competitions and winning numerous awards. I was robbed of everything by a man who was both my apprentice and a friend who betrayed me. That's why I quit being a craftsman. But you're different, Emma. You can create something new and surpass me altogether. And when the time comes, the truth will be revealed. Emma was deeply moved by her father's struggles and decisions. A new feeling welled up inside her, the determination to fulfill her father's dream. The last page contained a hurried note, additional materials hidden under the loose board in the northeast corner of the workshop floor. Until they're needed. Emma rushed to the northeast corner of the workshop to examine the floorboards. One board was indeed loose. Lifting it, she discovered a small wooden box hidden underneath. Inside was an old music box. When she opened it, a familiar melody began to play, and to her surprise, her father's voice had been recorded. "Emma, if you're listening to this, I must be gone now. But don't worry. You are strong. Whenever you face difficulties, I'm watching over your shoulder. Now, begin. Begin your life." The box contained other treasures too. Newspaper clippings, an article about how Emma's childhood drawing had won a local exhibition prize. Her father had carefully preserved it all these years. Dad. Emma broke down in tears. But beyond sorrow, a warm feeling began to fill her heart. As she closed the music box, she noticed something else at the bottom. Opening a small package, she found a beautiful pendant. Though simple, it was crafted with unmistakable skill. On the back was a tiny engraving, E, the first jewel. This was the last gift her father had made for her. With trembling hands, Emma placed it around her neck. The pendant glowed softly against her chest. Weeks later, Emma had found a job as a waitress at a nearby cafe, but the meager pay and long hours barely sustained her. It wasn't enough to cover her utility bills. She slept in the cold workshop wrapped in blankets and showered at a local laundromat. Outside, spring weather was arriving, but melting snow had begun to leak through the workshop ceiling, rendering parts of her workspace unusable. One night, facing yet another failed creation, Emma hit rock bottom. "I have no talent. Dad was wrong about me," she muttered to herself. Outside, a small sprout that had emerged was suddenly broken by a strong gust of wind. Emma saw herself in that broken shoot and sank deeper into despair. Nobody needs me. The crushing weight of emotional isolation overwhelmed her. She couldn't even hear her father's voice anymore. She began skipping dinner sometimes, instead spending more hours in her father's workshop. Despite repeated failures, she tentatively began creating small pendants and rough bracelets using her father's tools. "Never let your talent sleep," her father's words echoed as Emma gradually improved her skills. Sometimes she failed, sometimes things didn't go as planned, and many times she nearly gave up. Still, she kept returning to her father's blue notebook, moving forward one small step at a time. As she worked late into the night, the pendant her father had made for her caught the moonlight streaming through the window. Emma touched it gently, feeling something stir within her, not quite hope, but perhaps its distant cousin. Resilience. One day as spring arrived, Emma was working at the cafe when she became acquainted with a regular customer, Sophia Laurent, a refined 45-year-old businesswoman who owned a boutique. During her break, Emma was secretly polishing a small stone while sipping coffee. Sophia noticed and showed interest. "What's that you're working on?" she asked. "Just practicing something my father taught me," Emma replied shyly. "May I see it?" After a moment's hesitation, Emma pulled a simple bracelet from her bag. It wasn't sophisticated, but it had a unique warmth to it. "That's lovely. Would you sell it to me?" Sophia inquired. Emma nodded, surprised. "How much would you like for it?" "How about $100? Sophia offered. Emma couldn't believe the amount. Sophia purchased the bracelet on the spot and handed Emma her business card. "If you can make more, I'd like to sell them in my boutique. You have talent." After a brief pause, Sophia added quietly, "Watching you reminds me of myself years ago. I also started with nothing." She smiled gently. "Sometimes I wonder if this is what having a daughter would have been like." Emma was speechless with emotion. It had been so long since anyone had spoken to her with such warmth. After finishing work that day, Emma stepped outside to find spring rain beginning to fall. As she opened her umbrella, she heard Sophia's voice behind her. "Oh, I forgot my umbrella." The rain intensified, and Sophia had no umbrella. "Let me walk you," Emma offered, holding out her umbrella. "Let's go together," Sophia replied, and they walked side by side through the rain. A few days later, Emma was bedridden with a severe cold in her workshop. A knock at the door startled her awake. Opening it, she found Sophia standing there with soup and medicine. "You didn't come to the cafe yesterday, and I got worried. The manager gave me your address." Emma was deeply touched. It had been a long time since anyone had cared enough to check on her. Sophia looked around the room, her eyes settling on a small vase by the window containing a single tulip Emma had found in the garden. "Spring, the season of rebirth," Sophia said quietly. "I've weathered some long winters myself." She hesitated before beginning to talk about her daughter. "I actually have a daughter. Katie. She's 27 now." Sophia smiled sadly. "But we haven't spoken in 5 years. What happened?" "My work consumed me. I was never there when she needed me." The more successful my boutique became, the further she drifted away. Sophia sighed deeply. And then, I didn't approve of the partner she chose. Emma took Sophia's hand. You might find her again. I've tried. She doesn't want my apologies. Tears glistened in Sophia's eyes. That's why I'm glad I met you. I feel like it was meant to be. Emma's pieces began selling at Sophia's boutique. One spring day, they sat facing each other in the back room of the store, drinking coffee. Soft sunlight streamed through the window, reflecting off their cups. Emma. Sophia began hesitantly. I worried for a while that I was just projecting my daughter onto you. Emma looked up, surprised. If our relationship was just about filling my emptiness, that wouldn't be fair. Sophia continued. You have your own life to live. After a moment of silence, Emma spoke softly. I was looking for a mother figure in you too. But now, I think it's more than that. We chose each other, didn't we? Tears welled in Sophia's eyes. Yes, we chose each other. Family isn't just blood. It can also be hearts connected by choice, Emma said. Sophia smiled. Then, you and I are family. Walking home, Emma felt like she could hear her father's voice. See? I knew you could do it. That night, for the first time, she could afford to pay the electricity bill for the workshop. Under bright light, she studied her father's books and notes, refining her skills. She created piece after piece, bringing them to Sophia's boutique each weekend. At first, only a few sold, but gradually sales increased, even attracting repeat customers. Sophia evolved from a customer to a mentor. She visited Emma's workshop between work, offering advice and sometimes sharing meals and life experiences. I'd be happy if my experience could serve as a guidepost for you, Sophia said. Emma gradually regained her confidence. One night, she reopened her father's notebook, rereading the passages about Marcus Valentine. She searched for him online and discovered he was still a celebrated jewelry designer. Someday, I might meet him, she thought. When that day comes, I'll face him as the daughter carrying on my father's legacy. Months later, Emma launched sales under the brand name Emma's Legacy, using the motif of her father's pendant for the logo. She closed the joint account she had shared with David and opened an account solely in her name. Slowly but surely, she began to save money. Step by step, she repaired the house, first the plumbing, then the electrical wiring, and finally the heating system. She fixed the leaking workshop roof. Her life was being rebuilt gradually but steadily. From spring to early summer, flowers began blooming around her workshop and home, erasing the previous desolation. Emma started gardening occasionally, and fresh seasonal flowers became a constant fixture by the workshop window. Sales at Sophia's boutique steadily increased, and eventually, she opened a small online store. Emma's unique design style, fusing natural elements with geometric patterns, began attracting attention. This is a fusion of my father's techniques and my vision, Emma explained to customers. Each time, she touched the pendant hanging at her chest. It was her origin point and source of strength. As early summer heat settled in, Emma participated in a small local jewelry exhibition. Thanks to Sophia's introduction, her exhibition fee was waived. Her booth was modest, but displayed refined pieces that reflected her growing skill. On the final day of the exhibition, a young girl visited Emma's booth. Lily Morrison, a 16-year-old local high school student, stared intently at Emma's work. In the humid summer air, Lily's earnest gaze made a strong impression. Amazing, how do you make these? She asked with obvious curiosity. Emma smiled, explaining some basic techniques. Pure admiration shone in Lily's eyes. I want to work with jewelry like this someday, she said. But they don't teach this at school. Emma recognized Lily's passion, it mirrored her own younger self. If you're interested. She pondered briefly, you could visit my workshop sometimes to observe. Lily's face lit up. Really? From then on, Lily visited Emma's workshop once a week after school. At first, she only watched, but eventually Emma began teaching her basic techniques. Lily's talent was remarkable. She quickly grasped the fundamentals, though her first creations were clearly novice work. "I want to be like you, Emma," Lily said one day. "Strong, and able to create beautiful things." Emma was touched by these words. "Me? Strong?" "Yes," Lily said with a serious expression. "You built this wonderful place and career from nothing. That's what I want to become." Emma realized for the first time she was being viewed as a role model. Just as her father had taught her, now she was passing techniques and spirit to the next generation. The cycle of inheritance had begun to turn. When they worked together in the workshop, glasses of iced tea were always present. Despite the summer heat, they wiped away sweat and focused intensely on the gems before them. One hot summer day, an unexpected visitor appeared at Emma's workshop. It was David. He looked remarkably haggard, whether from the heat or life's difficulties. Deep fatigue showed on his face. "What do you want?" Emma asked calmly. Lily continued working, though tension showed in her expression. "I wanted to talk." He looked around the workshop, clearly surprised by the transformation. "This place has really changed." His eyes fell on Lily. "An apprentice?" Emma nodded. "What's your business here?" David continued uncomfortably. "My mother is sick. And we're facing financial ruin. I need your help." Emma stared at him steadily. "When you threw me out, I had nothing. Yet I had to survive. You'll have to do the same." After a pause, she said, "Lily, could you step out for a moment?" Lily gave Emma a worried glance but left the room. David's face contorted. "You're taking revenge, aren't you? Now that you're successful, you're looking down on us." "No. I simply learned my own worth. His voice dropped suddenly. "I only tried to defy my mother once. When I wanted to study art in college, she broke down crying. She wouldn't speak to me for days." A bitter smile crossed his lips. "Since then, I've had no choices of my own." Emma looked at him in surprise. She hadn't known about his small act of rebellion. David grew agitated. "Someone like you shouldn't be successful. You're only where you are because I supported you." Emma responded calmly. "You're right. I had nothing. But that's exactly what made me strong. When people hit rock bottom, they finally discover who they truly are." She pulled out an envelope. "By the way, this arrived this morning." It was an invitation to an international jewelry design contest. Emma's work had been selected as a finalist. David was speechless. "Why won't you help us? We were family once." Emma took a deep breath and answered quietly. "You taught me what truly matters. For that much, I'm grateful. But now, please leave. I have work to do." David left in anger, but as Emma watched him go, complex emotions washed over her. Perhaps he too had lost something precious. Lily returned. "Are you okay?" Emma turned to her with a smile. "Yes, I'm fine. Let's continue our work." As summer neared its end, the day of the international exhibition arrived. Emma had prepared for her reunion with Marcus. She had reread her father's notebook countless times, reviewing the list of stolen techniques and designs. The exhibition hall was cool with air conditioning, but Emma's nervousness only increased. Though small, her booth attracted considerable attention. On the first day, Marcus visited her booth as expected, this time accompanied by several media representatives. "Ms. Emma Simmons, your work shows strong influence from your father Richard," he said as cameras rolled. Emma smiled. "Yes, my father's influence is significant. Especially his unique Simmons cut technique, his greatest legacy." Marcus's expression froze momentarily. Simmons cut. An interesting name. That's what my father called it. His original technique. Developed in 1998, Emma stated precisely. This was before Marcus had obtained the patent. As media representatives showed interest, Emma produced copied pages from her father's notebook. "These are my father's original sketches. They're dated." Marcus was visibly disturbed. The journalists around him exchanged glances and began asking more questions. "Mr. Valentine, regarding this technique, you previously claimed." "Excuse me," Marcus said, hastily departing. That evening, Emma received a call from Marcus. "Let's meet tomorrow. We have things to discuss." The following afternoon, they sat facing each other in a cafe. Marcus looked tired. Outside, the final heat of summer persisted. "I understand what you're trying to say. But what good does dredging up the past do?" "The truth," Emma answered. "I want to restore my father's honor. I want his achievements recognized." Marcus pondered this. "My reputation in the industry is beginning to waver. Some journalists have started investigating." Emma watched him silently. After a long silence, Marcus spoke. "Your father was my mentor. I learned so much from him. But in my youth, I craved fame and made foolish choices." Regret tinged his voice. "When he disappeared, I tried to find him, but in the end, you built your success on his techniques." Marcus nodded quietly. "At tomorrow's award ceremony, I'll tell the truth. I'll acknowledge Richard Simmons' contributions and restore his honor. This will be the first step toward an honorable retirement." Tears welled in Emma's eyes. Her father's wish was finally about to be fulfilled. That night, in his hotel room, Marcus stood before the mirror, murmuring to himself. "Richard. I should have apologized to him." Deep remorse reflected in his eyes. Cool autumn breezes swept through the air as the International Contest Award ceremony began. Marcus took the stage and made a startling confession. "From today, I propose we officially call this technique the Simmons cut. And I acknowledge that his daughter, Emma Simmons, has brilliantly carried on her father's legacy." The hall erupted in applause. Emma was overwhelmed. Sophia embraced her and whispered, "Your father would be so proud." Months later, Emma was interviewed by an industry magazine on an autumn day with crimson leaves visible through the window. "My work comes from my experience of loss and rebirth," Emma said. "Things found after being lost hold special value." When asked about the concept of bonds in her work, Emma touched her pendant. "Family isn't just about blood relations. Bonds formed by choice can be just as strong. I didn't have a mother, but I have a wonderful friend who is like one. I believe everyone deserves a second chance." As autumn deepened, a young woman visited Sophia's boutique. "Mom," Katie said bitterly. "I read the interview with your new daughter. It irritated me to hear you referred to as her mother." But seeing Sophia, Katie softened. "The article said everyone deserves a second chance." Sophia approached with tears. "I'm sorry. I designed the boutique logo years ago," Katie revealed. "That logo became part of your success while I was erased from your world." Sophia embraced her daughter. "Is it too late to start over?" One autumn evening, Grace appeared at Emma's door. "May I come in?" Grace asked hesitantly. Emma nodded. Grace shared her story of pain. "My mother never loved me. She was cold, always controlling my life in the name of a family. Without realizing it, I became the same kind of mother to David. And to you." "A cycle of pain," Emma murmured. "If you want to repair our relationship, you must try to change." "You don't hate me?" Grace asked. Emma looked at her father's photograph. "My father taught me that revenge only empties the heart. Creation fills it. And I believe we all deserve a second chance." At the National Design Awards ceremony, Emma won Best New Designer and stood on stage. She expressed gratitude to her father and spoke about regeneration from adversity. Then she acknowledged those who supported her, Sophia, Lily, and surprisingly, Grace. "Life is a series of choices," she said. I chose creation over resentment. I learned to appreciate what remains rather than counting what was lost. At the reception, Grace handed Emma a small box containing her retirement savings, the exact amount she and David had borrowed. Being with you felt like a punishment at first, Grace said quietly. But now, I feel grateful I wasn't erased from your story. Emma took Grace's hand. Let's begin a new chapter together. 2 years after the award ceremony, the workshop is now filled with young craftsmen. Emma's brand has gained international recognition. Sophia and Katie has reconciled and they have launched a new brand together. Having you as a daughter makes me truly happy, Sophia often told Emma. On a special day, Emma stayed alone in the workshop and opened the music box from her father. The familiar melody played, along with her father's voice. Well done, Emma. I'm proud of you. Were you watching, Dad? Emma whispered. I'm finally strong, not because I survived, but because I chose to create, to forgive, and to pass it on. The winter light reflected beautifully off her creations. In her hands was a sketch for her next collection, a design fusing her father's techniques with her own style. She touched the pendant around her neck, her father's first gift. Though she had lost much, she has gained even more. Her life has become a story of creation, inheritance, and reconciliation.